I want to tell you a little bit of background of Dan. So I have been seeing Dan Thurmon in the hallways and in elevators for the last probably, I don't know, 15 years. And I knew of him, but I didn't know him personally. But he was very involved in the National Speakers Association. He was actually the president of the National Speakers Association. And I always admired his work, but I'd never really gotten to know him until I became involved in the National Speakers Association's youth program. And Dan is a huge advocate of the youth program, as am I. So I started working with him on a more personal level. And what I found, what I discovered was that Dan was just as excellent and charming and wonderful and possessed the same leadership qualities and skills off stage as he did on stage. And I was so impressed by his work. I'm impressed by his family life. I'm impressed by the way that he is so committed and focused on the tasks that he takes on. And I just wanted to share him with you guys. I wanted to give you a behind the scenes access to this guy who's a superstar. I'm gonna read his bio real quick. And for those of you that are on the call, you know that Frances is recording this call, and she has already put it on the chat that these calls are recorded. As you know, the calls are only recorded for our paid membership communities, so you guys will have access to the replay. So Dan Thurmon is the author of 2 books, a Hall of Fame speaker, a recognized expert in delivering peak performances on stage and in the workplace, and an acrobat. He has delivered thousands of presentations across 6 continents for business leaders, TEDx talks, troops on the front lines, and he has even performed for royalty. Dan's philosophy can be summarized by the title of his book, Off Balance on Purpose. He believes that we will never achieve perfect balance and should instead learn to embrace uncertainty and initiate positive changes that lead to growth. So, ladies and gentlemen, get ready to expand your thinking and sharpen your focus. Please help me welcome Dan Thurmon.
Thank you, Caroline. So great to be with you and your group. I appreciate the invitation.
Oh, I'm so excited to have you here. So, Dan, this is my amazing community. I have such wonderful women in this group, and they all have so many talents, and they are so diverse in every way. But we are all seeking the same thing. A lot of us are striving for balance, and you have a completely different philosophy on balance. So I wanted to know, what's up with this off balance on purpose? Why don't you promote balance?
Well, I do advocate balance, but the distinction that I draw is balance as the goal versus balance as the discipline or the skill set. Really, balance is not what you get or ever attain. It's what you do. We're constantly in the process of balancing, which is we're making adjustments and decisions about where we're going to place our time and our energy and our focus. And in real time, it can be very challenging to understand and determine what is the best use of my attention right now. What should I be working on? Especially when we feel like we have this burden of so many different aspects of life, personal and professional, things we desire for ourselves and things that are required of us by the people we are responsible to or by the people we love and by the people we care about. And so in that world or that sea of change that's constantly our life, the question is, how do you rise above all of that and understand you always have a choice? And rather than trying to compartmentalize and even everything out and attain this mythical standard of balance, which is, it's honestly a forestalling technique that says, I'm not enough now. I can't be purposeful now. I can't be useful now. This isn't enough. I'm working towards something in the future, and one day it's all going to be like evened out and perfectly balanced. No. Life is now. Life is what you get in this moment, and in this moment, you have the opportunity to make it beautiful, to make it incredible. And so going off balance on purpose is about those 4 words mean a lot. And some people immediately know what it means for them. I wrote the book because I was so tired of hearing all my corporate clients say, oh, balance is so important to our organization. We work really hard and we play hard and we want our people to have great lives. And that's it. There was no strategy. There was no thought or action behind that, just wish. It was just a wish. We want people to be fulfilled. So how do you do it, right? And so I thought, well, is balance really what you want? No, it's what you do. And being off balance on purpose is about intentionality. If you were to think of a wave breaking with tremendous force, and we're constantly, these waves of change are on top of us. The question is, how do you stay on the front edge of that wave so that you can lean in and you can guide it and you have some ability to navigate with authority and to initiate changes that you desire, and you're connected to a sense of purpose and mission and meaning. So it's both intentionality and an awareness of what your life is really all about. That's my goal, is to help people figure that out and to live more fulfilling lives right now.
I love how you say that balance is something you do as opposed to something that you achieve. And I kind of feel that way about happiness too. I feel like happiness is something that we do, right? We choose joy, we choose happiness, we choose, and instead of something that we achieve. We spend so much time worried about what we're going to achieve as opposed to what we're actually doing now. So I love that concept. And you are an acrobat, right? So I read in your book, and I've seen you do it, how you talk about even when you look like you're perfectly balanced, you're always making adjustments. You're never, can you talk a little bit about that? Like what that means?
Yeah, absolutely. I could do that. Or I could demonstrate something for you if you like. We're in our studio right now, and this is our response to the challenges of the last year. Any test that comes at you is an opportunity to test yourself. And that's really what we did in this realm. And we said, how can we deliver to our brand, which is a full experiential learning experience, right? And that's mind, body, and spirit. It's my physicality impacting you. It has a spiritual component and a very cognitive component as well, where we teach a lot of strategy and deep thought. So we created a stage or a studio with 3 different sets. And so this is our library, kind of the spiritual center of our facility. But we also have a action room, which is over here. And so,
oh, this is exciting.
So in this space, this is where we come in to interact with whatever media I'm doing. I could be up and physically moving and things, but also, like you mentioned, that notion of balancing, right? And so it's like, if you think about it, like the foundations of our lives have been rocked in so many different ways. And so if you see this lectern here in the corner, Shay's going to pull out just a little bit so you can see it a little bit better. We were filming something earlier today. There you go. And so the question isn't how do you stop the platforms from moving? Because when you think about it, everything in our life is different now. How we're working, how we're learning, how we're interacting with our kids, how we're reaching our clients, how we're exercising, obviously, or getting food or ordering products or services. So, and looking forward changes the constant. So how do you position yourself on top of it? Watch close. Here we go.
Are you guys ready for this?
All right, now I didn't really warm up, so this is fresh for you. But you can see I'm not balanced. I'm balancing. And I'm making constant adjustments. I'm working really hard. And after all that effort, I'm still in the same place. I'm just a lot more exhausted. Right? So this is how most people engage with uncertainty. They say, how do I stop the platform from moving? And you really can't. The question is, how do you position yourself on top of it to either protect it in the space where you are, but ideally to lean in and go off balance on purpose and initiate those changes. So this is the book that you've been reading. Are you enjoying it so far? You did the Audible version, right?
I did the Audible version. Yes, I did. So I've had you in my ear for weeks now.
Fantastic. All right. So there's that quick demonstration, and also an example of how I aligned this lifelong set of skills. I learned some gymnastics when I was a hyperactive young man. And someone said, as long as you do it, you'll always be able to do it. And I've been putting that to the test. And so I'm 52 years old, and I'm still doing handstand push-ups and tumbling runs and standing back tucks and all kinds of fun things and mountain unicycling. And it's just like, how do you keep this going? And it's become a kind of an example of how my life and my brand are in alignment. That's also what I try to teach. So I'm going to sit back down so I could see you.
Okay, how awesome was that? If anybody has any questions or you want to cheer him on, please put it on the chat and tell us how you're feeling about this, because this is absolutely amazing. Thank you. Thank you, Dan, for that demonstration.
And I'd also say, if something we're talking about resonates with you in a deeply personal place, to the degree that you want to ask a question and share, and say, it helped guide the conversation, let's do that, because I mean, we've got this one opportunity to be together in this group, and I want to make it as incredibly valuable for you as possible. And I know that on this call, we've got people who are coming from all walks of life, who are tremendously successful and joyful and committed to learning. And I know we also have a lot of people, I don't know who you are, but just in any audience, you've got people who are dealing with very deeply personal things right now. And I want to help you in your thought process, in your ability and action. So hopefully we all leave this uplifted and more confident about what we're doing.
So I have a question for you, Dan, and that is,
Sure.
Your career, your lifestyle has required a lot of traveling, a lot of I'm assuming a lot of separation from your family. You are in a profession that requires a lot of your time. So how do you balance that, your family life, your personal life, with all the focus and commitment that you put towards your work?
Well, it changes, right? Because a family is a living organism, and as your kids get older and as you get deeper into your married years, everything is constantly in flux and in flow. And so I've been married for 28 years.
His wife is in the background right now.
to my incredible wife, Shay, who's actually switching cameras for us today. So she's here in the room. We've always been in business together from the early beginnings. I found NSA in 1994, the National Speakers Association, when I was just making that jump from being an entertainer with a few clever things to say and an inspirational heart. I was always interested in motivation and personal development, and I was running a business, an entertainment business, but I had a great client base and things like this, but I learned about this world of speaking right about the time that we got married. And so it's been a lifelong journey for us. And then as we had kids, and yes, the travel was really quite substantial. We had a lot of things that we did. I call them lifelines. Our lifelines are the ways that we connect the various aspects of who we are to each other, so that they're not separate. You're not trying to compartmentalize your life. You're trying to connect what matters most. And so in terms of the work, which can be all-consuming, especially if you're in business for yourself, and the people you care for and care about, that those lifelines are really important. So when our kids were really little, we had a lot of rituals built into my travel experiences. We would, no matter where I was in the world, whenever I was going on stage, we would coordinate so they knew the exact time that Daddy was taking the stage, and they would say a cheer. And Shay and the kids had developed this beautiful, cute little cheer. I could even do it for you, but if you wanted to. But it was just a way to send me energy and love as they knew I was going on stage. And I'd come home and I'd tell them about my audiences, and I'd always tuck them in when they came home. I'd work no matter how late I got in, I'd always make breakfast. And when I was home, the reminder was to be off balance in that direction, to be completely present where I was. And I firmly have a belief that, yes, there's no substitute for a quantity of time that you can have with someone. But yes, you can go very deeply into a moment, not by forcing it, not by saying, hey, come here, son, let's have a meaningful conversation right now, but just by being there, completely there, fully present, curious, interested in what they're interested in, and very imperfectly so, but but it's always been, how do I get better at it? And how do we remain close? And now our son is 22. He's been editing many of our videos, our weekly coaching videos, for 4 years now or so. So that's a lifeline, connecting him to the business and to the message. So every week I'm doing a customized coaching video, and my son gets to hear it and create this collaboration with me that goes out to everyone. And Maggie, my daughter, and I are really involved in creating content. Most of that's for her business now. She's 18 and is now a social media influencer with 4 million followers on TikTok. And we just had a meeting today of a new podcast that we're going to start in early July. That we'll be launching actually while we're at Influence. So it's going to be crazy.
Oh, I love it.
So the answer is we just say yes to whatever checks all the boxes. It's connected to our passions, it's connected to our mission, and it connects us to each other. And when those things align, then we know it's an opportunity to lean in.
Yeah, I want to repeat that. It's connected to your interests.
Yeah, it's connected to our interests. It's connected to our mission in life, the reason why we all feel like we're here, which is ultimately, it's not about you. It's about how do you help other people, right? I mean, it's a huge jump that you make when you go from saying my life is about attainment and goals, and yeah, you can amuse yourself by saying how much can I experience and get and achieve all my objectives. But at some point, you realize that there's a governor on that threshold of satisfaction and fulfillment, because it's just another repeat of the same rush of self-fulfilling experience. When you realize you can tap into how you help other people, man, that becomes the hit. It's like, how do I get more of that? How do I do more of that for other people? And especially during this past year, that's really something I've tried to amplify, because what's wild, and you know this, it's like when you identify as a speaker who's on the road in front of audiences, and for literally decades, that's been my life of bouncing around like you and like your dad did your whole time growing up. It's like, how many audiences can I be in front of this year? And that's how we make the impact. Hundreds or thousands of people at a time in big rooms. Okay, well, when there's no rooms and when there's no audiences, now who are you? And how do you do what you do? And what is it that you do? Are you a speaker? No. I mean, I'm here to try to help people to develop more self-confidence, to overcome the objectives in their life, to be there for themselves and for the people they care about. And guess what? They need that now more than ever. And so I better figure this out, because I'm not living my mission if I don't.
Dan, Daisy's, and Lourdes, I'm going to get to your question, but this is so on point with this question that I want to ask it. Daisy asked this question, which is, what is your definition of purpose? And I feel like you are talking about purpose. So what is your definition of purpose?
So it starts with the genuine belief that you're here for a reason, that your life matters, that you simultaneously can understand that you are right now one of billions of people in the world, and your life is finite. And there have been billions more who preceded you and billions more that will follow you. And so in some sense you go, wow, my life is so insignificant, right? And that's a useful perspective, because when you feel overwhelmed or immersed in the struggles and challenges that are all around you, I call it zooming out. You can kind of elevate above your own environment and experiences, and kind of from your mind's eye perspective, see that from a distance, and then continue higher and higher until it's like you understand the perspective of, you're just one person on this earth, right? And so that gives you perspective of, wow, this doesn't necessarily matter in the way that I think it does. And yet the flip side of that coin, because life is full of these truths that are simultaneously both completely relevant. One is that you're insignificant in the comparison to everything, and that you possess incredible significance because you're connected to everything, and you have an opportunity to live on this planet for a finite period of time, and you are plugged in to this life, right? And so, and everything you are and all that you do counts, and everything you've experienced serves you in some way. You don't have to know exactly how. You just have to trust that it does. And that this moment, as mundane as it may seem, really contains the totality of everything. And if you can do that, then you realize, okay, well, I better get busy trying to figure out why I'm here, and that my purpose is bigger than me and my own expectations about life. And so purpose is macro and it's micro. It's the bigger picture meaning of, what's going on, how am I connected to my life, what's my relationship with life and living. And then there's the micro, which is where the rubber hits the road. What am I doing today? Like, what's my purpose today? Am I really on track? Do I have organization in my life? Am I working toward what really matters? It also is something that comes, I believe, through you. Purpose is not something you create out of nothing. It's something that I believe flows through you because of your gifts, your uniqueness, your personality, and it's a lifelong journey of discovering that. You never figure it out completely. You never stop asking the question, but you're just constantly trying to elevate your awareness and clarity. And once you hone in on that, you start to see new opportunities in your life to test that and to live out your purpose, to prove that you mean it, right? So it flows from you and through you. So you got to figure out what's the through you part, and then align those daily choices and actions so that you are checking, you're doing what you're supposed to be doing. We could get into values and mission and vision and all of those tools that you can use to really help craft some language around that. It's interesting because we're almost done building out an online course right now, and today's module that we filmed was all about seeking your purpose. So we spent a lot of time putting that together today. But I hope that's helpful.
It is. It's really helpful. And here's a question. Well, I don't want to ignore Lourdes' question. Lourdes is an HR manager, and she says they speak at work about striving for work-life balance. So how do we shift our focus to align with this new way of thinking? How do we lead at work towards doing that?
Well, I would, just for now, because of this conversation, we've put a little, we've disrupted your pattern around the word balance. Now, from this point forward, every time you hear the word balance, you're going to be reminded that, wait a second, is this word being used properly? Am I trying to achieve more balance, or am I trying to become a better balancer? Is it what I'm doing or what I'm getting? So I would say, understand that however somebody enters that conversation, their intention is good. Their intention is there to honor and say, how do we do this thing so that everybody feels more fulfilled? Because work can be very satisfying in so many different ways, but for a lot of people, even people at a very high level successfully, it's about how do I earn more money? How do I, how am I able to acquire more things and create this cycle of, paying bills and getting more stuff and doing more jobs and making more money, and it's not really getting to that next level. And that next level could be a sense of personal satisfaction because you're taking such great pride in your work. It could also be ultimately a purposeful offering. Our work matters because we're touching lives, we're helping people. We have this thing that we do that people hire us for, but there's this other thing that we do that's up here, right? That has a bigger picture and a bigger meaning. And if you can get to that level of clarity, then people are willing to push a little bit harder, to work a little bit happier, and they connect at work with each other in a way that's more exciting because they're part of a collaboration. They're part of something that has a cause built into it.
So at the beginning, and thank you for that, Dan. At the beginning, you said connected to your interests, connected to your mission, and connected to each other, to your lifelines, to your family. But here's a question: what about your personal development? What about exercise? What about eating healthy? If you are off balance, how do you find time to do these things just to maintain status quo, just to stay in shape, just to, in your case, you're an acrobat, but I think Katie Cabanas wrote, what about our mere mortals? How do we do this balancing act?
Well, I'm going to illustrate that for you in the other room in just a second. But first of all, again, health is not something you do. It's not like, how do I get to the gym and how do I do this? You first have to align with that idea of, of, of being aligned with health and being a healthy person. I am healthy, and because of that, what you're going to react differently in your world. We talked about like how you move, not just how you go to the gym, but how you walk around a room, how you walk
Yes.
across a parking lot, how you stretch when you're bending down to pick something up. Are you conscious and aware of how your body feels? Do you regularly take time to work out the kinks and to take stretch breaks and to breathe? And are you curious? So much of this is just about curiosity, because if you align to health, then suddenly you're going to say, well, wait a second. Now, what is the way that I can eat in such a way that my energy doesn't crash at the middle of the day, or that I can have greater longevity, or you get more interested in preparing food that's very satisfying in so many different ways, not just because you made it and it's delicious, but because it gives you a sense of like satisfaction that this is good, that not necessarily just good for me, but this is good, and I'm good as a result of it. Let me show
I think
you.
what you're talking about is, and I talk about this a lot with my group, is it's also making it a part of your identity, right? I mean, that's what I'm hearing, that you are not just eating healthy, you are healthy. You are becoming a person whose identity is a healthy person.
Yeah,
Are we aligned on that?
yeah, and here's the thing I would suggest: don't worry about trying to do it all at once, for sure. Don't worry about trying to make the best choice out there. Just make
A
consistently
choice.
better choices, right? So if you're looking at a menu and there's a couple different things that appeal to you, which one is better? Go for the better option. You know, it might be something grilled versus something fried, or whatever, or something plant-based versus a big piece of meat, or it could be whatever. You know, you have these choices. Or what are the activities that I'm going to do? Should I do something that gets me up and moving, or should I do something where I'm lethargic and looking at a computer screen? You know, you have to build that into your life, because if you don't, the default is going to be whatever other people throw at you. And even for me, you'd be surprised how quickly the things that used to be easy suddenly aren't anymore. You know, getting up, going for a ride, getting up and going, working out, or going to, eating a little bit sloppier than I usually do. Um, and then I would say just develop a physical curiosity about how your body works, how your body moves. Can I get things going? And realizing that if you're sore and if your body is aching in certain ways, we might psychologically be thinking, oh, I need to move less, when the answer could be you need to move more, and you need to
Absolutely.
move better, and you need to stretch. You need to strengthen the muscles around your legs and backs and back and knees. And when you get that strength that supports your body in different ways, you talk about core. When you get that core strength and the posture, that's the things start to feel better. And when you develop that awareness of your body, then you're just, when things are working and when they're not, before it becomes a huge issue. So
Dan, you talk about it in your book about the parking far. Can you talk about that? Because I thought that was such an amazing analogy. And we have a girl in our community that has lately been saying, because I promote in my community, even just 5 minutes of movement. Just give me 5 minutes, anything, just move your body. And
yes,
she's been putting things like, you know what? I decided today that instead of ordering delivery, I walked to get my lunch. And I decided that I was gonna park far from my office, and I walked because I knew it was going to be a long day and I couldn't exercise. And I keep encouraging that, but then I heard it in your book, and I want you to tell them how you feel about that.
yeah, I would so much rather you do something for minutes a day than a couple hours once a week. It's about the habits and the little things. And so I just mentioned, I think what you're talking about is making it a habit to not try to get the closest parking space to the store. If you're going to a store, deliberately park farther away and then enjoy a brisk walk on the way into the store. Get yourself moving, cover some ground, and you're doing two things. You're liberating yourself from the stress of saying, oh, where can I park and can I get close and is that person leaving? And you just say, I'm going to leave all that anxiety to those people, love them, right? But I don't need to play that game right now. I'll be over here doing my own special thing that no one else is doing, so I feel a little sneaky. I feel like I'm playing my own special little version of life that I'm into, and then I enjoy this walk, and I get to the store, and I do my thing, and I get back to my car, and I know exactly where it is because there's no other cars around it, right?
Yeah.
Or or like when we travel at airports, like I would do weird things at airports, like stretching on the, I'd hold on to the handrail in the train and stretch out my shoulder in a particular way because I was working through an injury. Or you get to the escalators, and in Atlanta, they've got that massive escalator, right? And so everybody races to get to the escalator, and then they stop, and then they wait the 2 minutes or whatever it takes them to get to the top of the escalator. But if I'm the first in the escalator, and I try to be, I just walk up and I count the steps. And I say, how many steps can I get in before I'm at the top? And it's like 45 usually. And I'm winded by the time I get done, but the more I do it, the less winded I am. So little things like that you can orchestrate into your life. But again, it's about, like you said, identifying with health.
I love that. And in your book, you wrote, what if you're running late for work? Do you park closer? And your answer was, no, you walk faster. And I found that to be so adorable. I said, yes, it's true. If you're running late, just walk faster and then you said, well, you got a better workout today because you were late, you were running late. So I love that. You were going to show us something when I asked you the question, and I don't want you not to show the group. So
I'm going to come over here and back to the off balance on purpose thing. And the analogy, you mentioned juggling, right? So yes. One of the philosophies, juggling is the most incredible skill and illustration. It's a great metaphor for life because it teaches you so many things about how to manage more, how to manage your focus in the midst of the chaos or the activity, how to find order or flow in what looks like chaos to other people. What happens when you go from 3 to 4 and how your patterns change. When you take on more, it changes everything. And you have to first learn the pattern. And then, of course, the reality that in order to attain any level of success with this skill, you have to literally drop thousands or tens of thousands of times. Like if you are averse to making mistakes and dropping, juggling is a really bad career choice because that's how you get better. And of course, the metaphor and the analogy is that's how you get better at anything, by making mistakes and striving for something better, some excellence. But in my book, you're aware that I talk about the 5 spheres of your life: your work, your relationships, the people you care about and care for, your health, your spirit, and your personal interests or your passions. And you can think about these as separate components, or you can say, well, what does that pattern look like? How are they connected? And so if we look down here, we begin to see this vision of how they look, right? And there's a loop that connects them. If you could watch one ball, if this was a show, we'd actually turn off the lights and do it with glowing objects. But you can see it kind of makes that infinity loop going back and forth. Now, a couple things happen when you're juggling with 5 balls is you have to keep looking up. You have to have that constant awareness of, am I consistently taking proper action to my targets and my goals? Because juggling is not about making great catches. It's about making excellent throws consistently. And when you do that, the catches become easier. And you begin to see the connection of how it all fits together, right? So looking up and then also slowing down to realize even with more objects, it's not a race. You can't get it all up in the air at once because it all comes down at once and overwhelms you. So it's about sequencing and finding the space between the throws and catches, going a little bit slower because it's those spaces between the moments and the interactions of our lives where we also have the opportunities. So again, elevating that analogy, let's look at this pattern. So your 5 spheres, your work, your relationships, your health, your spirit, and your passions or your personal interests. And so you can, again, think of these as the 5 different parts of me that I'm working on separately and independently, which will always overwhelm you because you never have enough time for everything. Or you could slow down and look up and say, what does that pattern look like? And really, how are they connected? So here's a lifeline connecting work to relationships. You say, all right, how am I connecting the work, my professional commitments, to the people I care about? Obviously, financially, we work to take care of those we love. But can we strengthen that connection? Can we teach the people we love about the work that we do? Invite their input into how we make decisions or what we're working on, and maybe become a bit more vulnerable, even sharing some of those challenges. Answer this one. Does your job, your work, support your desire to be healthy, or are there very real challenges between your work and your health? And if so, how do you flip that so that it is sustainable rather than in conflict? We bring greater congruence. Am I practicing my spiritual beliefs and fueling my personal spirit in the context of work, and also my interests or my passions, and learning about the passions of the people I work with or work for, my customers and clients and coworkers? In our relationships, we can try to strengthen our connections to shared health and commitments and activities, and spiritual connections and personal interests. If you want to get close to somebody, just find out what their thing is, their passion, and then you invest in what they love. Don't try to get them interested in what you're doing or what you love. If you invest in their passions, then you bring them closer. So this is that pattern in motion with all the lifelines connected. And you can see it's not balanced. This is like the DNA of a healthy, aligned life. It's off balance, but it's purposeful, and it's in greater symmetry and connection as you're moving forward, right? And you can see that infinite loop as any one ball traces the air. And that's reminding us, you're never done. You're never done learning. You're never done growing in any of these areas. We have an infinite capacity to realize new levels of knowledge and awareness and contribution all of the time. So that's the beauty. You're never done learning.
I love that. You know, a lot of what you're saying, Dan, is reminds me of being there even when you're not. You have a lot of being there even when you're not. I always say that with my dad. One of the things about my dad was that he made me a partner in his journey. So he was not physically present in my house all of the time, but I knew he would tell me, you know, by you sacrificing your time with me, I know, or you know, that you are indirectly helping the lives of the people that I am helping on the stages and when I'm traveling and when I'm working. So I was a partner in that journey. And I'm hearing you and how you're connecting it, and it's just absolutely wonderful. Thank you for sharing that with us. You said something that I wanted to ask you about. You said you talked about excellence and how juggling is about having excellent throws. And one thing that I've admired about you, and I've seen this in you, is that you do everything with excellence. And we see it in everything, right? I mean, your speeches are excellent. Your participation in the youth program is excellent. I still don't know how you were the president of the National Speakers Association. I mean, that's a whole other ball game. But you do everything with so much excellence. And I want to know, what is the difference between excellence and perfectionism? You know, because I don't think that you try to be perfect. It doesn't sound like you aim to be perfect. So what's the difference?
No, I don't try to be perfect. In fact, I think in a way, perfection is an enemy of excellence, because it in the same way that you could kind of get seduced by the idea of waiting to achieve balance or waiting to achieve success, the pursuit of perfection, it absolutely puts you in this category where I'm on hold and nothing is going to really advance until I determine arbitrarily it's the best it can possibly be. And it'll never be the best it can possibly be. So I think about my commitment to excellence is I want to do all that's required, all that I can think of, and then some. And that little extra effort, and then some. How do I try to be a good husband to my wife? Well, I check all the boxes of what good husbands should do, and then some. And that way she knows that this is really, that I love her, and she matters to me so much, and I appreciate all that she's sacrificed and done for me and for our kids all these years. And again, I do that very imperfectly. But when you invest that extra effort and commit to excellence consistently, not all the time, but consistently enough that it becomes a habit, excellence does become a habit, then it's self-serving. It really becomes a great satisfaction, because the truth is it doesn't take much to differentiate yourself from everyone else in terms of what people expect. So it's not about your expectations for me. It's more about my sense of expectations for me. And that has presented some challenges, because when you get known as the guy who's excellent at everything, then it becomes harder to fail publicly in a way where I'm trying some things that are not in my sweet spot, not in my skill set. I'm a mediocre drummer and guitar player, and I love playing music, and I can play music at my praise band. Am I the best drummer or guitarist in the world? No. But I will be on time at every rehearsal, a little bit early, fully prepared, because I got the songs in advance and I put in the time, and I'm trying to do my best. And I'm bringing that level of discipline. So for me, yeah, perfection is off the table. And when you think about speaking or anything where you're on stage in front of people, the goal is never to be perfect. Perfection's boring. It becomes robotic and routine, and it's very unrelatable. You know, when you're watching somebody who's flawless, in a sense, you don't get it, because you got no way in. But if the goal is not perfection, but it's presence, then I'm right there with you. You know what I mean? And even in this environment, when we're on a virtual meeting, I hate that term, by the way. It's not a virtual meeting. It's a meeting. It's actually happening. Like, we're really here. This is actually really happening. Neither one of us is imaginary, okay? It's distanced, for sure, but you have absolutely 100% of my presence, and I hope you feel that right now, because that liberates me from the idea of having to be perfect. I don't have to be, and that's a wonderful feeling when you know, like, just being me, just being now, it's going to be great, you know?
Yeah.
Because it's real.
So this is crazy, but I know Shay's in the background. Is Shay like open to coming and meeting us? Because she's so cool, and she's like the woman behind this excellence. And I'd love for her to meet my community. Would she come out and pop out?
Yeah. Do you want to bring the podcast mic, or do you want to just use my mic? You can just talk into my head. No, sit here with me.
I want to.
And that way we can
Hi,
kind of
Shay. I know we didn't plan this, but you know, you are Shay.
Isn't she adorable?
She is, and you are the glue that holds this family together. So we have so many women in this community. Go ahead.
I could brag on my wife so much. She gave a kidney to a young man that she met exactly once.
No.
Just because he needed one and she had one. And she's like, all right, you can have one of mine. I got two.
You gave your kidney?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Wow.
But she is a real life Mother Teresa to all who know her in many, many ways. And the hardest working person in our family, for sure. Yeah. Yeah.
So Shay, do you have any advice for our women who work so hard? Because you know, Dan is amazing, but you're the mom here, and you're juggling probably more balls than he is. So, what are your words of wisdom for the women in our community that are juggling so many balls and supporting their husbands' careers and doing all the things that we do?
I don't know if you can hear me through
Yeah,
his
you
mic.
can.
Can you hear me?
Oh, we hear you.
I mean, I'm totally in tune with Dan. I've been editing his videos, shooting him for 27 years. We just, we totally agree on all of this. And I think one of the successes of our marriage and our business is that Dan and I both have always had the philosophy of self-improvement. We didn't get married so we could fix each other and, you need to be this or him telling me what I need to be. we are always wanting to improve ourselves and be there for each other. Plus, we give each other foot massages, so that's another really important marriage success, but also business success. You know, because we work together, perhaps we celebrate how our business, even though he's the speaker, it's our work, and especially now during the virtual.
Yeah, it's been cool because, you know, used to be I spent so much time on the road. One of my jokes was 3 rules when you spend a lot of time on the road: always bring a great book because you never know how much time you're going to have. Secondly, is never do anything out of town you wouldn't do at home, which covers what you would eat and who you'd hang out with and everything like that. And the third rule is never start whistling while you're packing, right? Which is, in other words, don't get too excited that you're leaving, right? But then and the flip side would be sometimes I'd catch her whistling while I was packing, which was very odd. She'd be like, I'm always more productive with you out of town.
He's a distraction.
So with me literally home for almost an entire year, it's been crazy to realize how much better this is.
We're good together.
We're good together, and it's going to be hard, if not impossible, to get back to that same schedule because I don't think I'd have the same appetite for it. The one thing I'd say about our relationship is that, and this extends to our kids, where there has ever been any conflict, it's neither one of us has any tolerance for letting it linger. We always address it in the moment, real time. We make our apologies very quickly and very sincerely, and we move on. We don't harbor any animosity for what was. We always are looking forward, and yeah, when things are, you know, when there's a ripple in the force, it's not good for anybody, and we get rid of it quickly, and our kids are the same way.
Yep. I love that. Maggie, even very young, she'd be upset. She could never, I don't think she has ever once been upset with us and went to bed without coming in and saying, I'm sorry. And
except for the time that I told her, I said, she was all mad at me and she was yelling, and I was like, all right, Maggie, but it's okay because you'll apologize to me before you go to bed tonight anyway. That was the night that she didn't do it because she couldn't give me that victory, but it also screwed up her night of sleep.
Yeah,
she could not sleep.
She's like, oh, it's like you wouldn't let me come in essentially because you threw the gauntlet down. But
yeah.
Shay, so I have
behind the board.
I have a question for you. How do you stay exercising and eating well and motivated to take care of yourself when you are, you know, maybe when the kids were little and Dan was out of town and traveling and maybe you were overwhelmed and you had a lot of work. How did you manage to invest in yourself and find time for yourself? Do you subscribe to the off balance, on purpose mindset as well? And if so, how do you apply it to your life? I know I'm throwing this at you, but.
Absolutely. I had to rewrite the rules as when the kids were really young. I joined a gym that had a nursery. So I could actually go work out, and the kids loved it because they'd get to go to this new little place and new little toys. And so that's how I did it when they were younger. But I just started learning to fit it in. And I'm a writer, and that's been the one thing that I have sacrificed over the years because it's like, well, I got to get this done. I got to get that, you know, taking care of the family and the business. And so I started just saying, okay, instead of being a morning writer like I wanted to be, or like this is the way I am, I would write in the car for 15 minutes while I'm waiting in the parking lot for a carpool. If Maggie had a rehearsal, I'd drive, you know, early and get there in the parking lot, and my car became my office for several years until she got her driver's license. And so I just made it work and fit it in. And then she'd come in. By the time she got in the car, I'd be so excited because whether I've written a scene or, you know, multiple pages, it's like, yay. Or even paying bills. I'd be doing accounting. I'm balancing, you know, the books.
It's crazy.
And so I just would carve out those things, even if it's only 10 minutes, 15 minutes. It's a little further down, and I'm a little more relaxed when I come to re-engage with the family because it's not piling up. So that's
I love
the
how you
main-
said, I love how you said rewrite the rules. I love it. Seems to me like both of you and even your kids, you're a family who makes up your own rules. You don't subscribe to everybody else's rules. And probably because you do that and you do that together, it's 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 probably created a lot of success. So congratulations on that.
Yeah, we the title of the podcast that Maggie and I are going to be doing, and Shay's producing, and Eddie's editing, and all, is Wholesome Chaos. And the course that I just completed that we're doing together, is Transform Your Chaos. And the whole idea is chaos, like balance, isn't necessarily a bad thing. It's the idea that everything is unpredictable and it's unexpected, which can be beautiful, because chaos is, again, this realm. And if you get into chaos theory, you could see that there are patterns within that you can understand, and then you can change them in certain ways. And so, so like when you said you live by your own rules, honestly, we don't even know the rules that we're going to need for the next thing, because when it gets here, it'll be something we haven't seen yet. But it'll always align to our family's values and our family's principles and the way we treat each other. And
yeah, and it goes back to purpose.
yeah,
And that's why I wouldn't say rewriting the rules, but yes, it's always knowing what that purpose is and how to navigate and be ready to, like you said, it's off balance on purpose. And
A lot of people, when they think of purpose, they think that purpose has to be tied to work. So oftentimes we think, well, how do we find our purpose for our careers? And the way that I hear you two talking about purpose, I hear you talking about having purpose in life, just in everything that you do, and applying that purpose to your personal, to your children, to your family, to your marriage, to your writing, to your work. Is that right?
yeah, and I would say probably purposeful,
Mhm.
and because there's not a purpose, but you're always being purposeful.
And it's not necessarily, oh, I'm going to glean this big sense of purpose now and then approach this way. It's a lot of it is about trust and faith, not necessarily, spiritual faith, although that is a part of it for us, but just the idea that something good is about to happen here, and it's going to serve me in some way. I don't have to know exactly how, but I'm where I'm supposed to be at this moment, and I can give something beautiful. And even if I try something that's going to test me and it doesn't work out, you know what? Ultimately, I still win, because I win in one or two ways. Either I'm proving myself more capable than I thought I was, or I'm learning something really important in a moment that was very real and genuine, and I've demonstrated some courage and bravery and maybe inspired someone else, and I can take that learning and incorporate it into the next thing. Like my mentor, my juggling teacher, always told me that when I first got on stage, he said, every time you do a show, you do 3 shows. The one you plan, the one you do, and the one you should have done that you'll think about in the car on the way home.
Yes.
Right?
That applies to speakers too.
Yes. In other words, get over yourself. And of course, you're not going to be perfect. You're going to drop. You're going to do things that you never anticipated. Because in all of your preparation and practice and thinking about this moment, whatever that moment is, you've left out the moment. You've left out the people. You've left out the real thing, right? It's all been just guesswork. Now you're in the real thing. Your preparation serves you, but you have to let it go in order to live a truly organic, real moment with an audience or with a family or with a tough conversation with your spouse or with your kids, whatever it is. You're there. And then afterward, of course, you're going to be thinking, I wish I'd have said that, or I should have handled this differently. And that's okay. That's the learning part that informs the next process.
You're in
I'm gonna
training for
step back
something
out,
bigger.
Caroline. Thank you.
Shay, thank you. Can everybody give Shay a shout out, please? Let's give her
Thank you,
some love. She did that off the cuff without any preparation. She's a trooper. That might not have been an easy thing to do. So thank you, Shay. Does anybody have any last minute questions? Because we have 5 minutes with this beautiful family. And if you have any questions for him, this is the time to ask these questions.
I'm going to show you, as we're waiting for that, I'll show you the classroom. So this is my third space. I told you mind, body, and spirit. This is where we mess with your heads a little bit, where I've got my own flipboard and chalkboard. This was from a recent event. And so when I talk about being comfortable in the context of not having complete certainty, which by the way, you never do. All you ever get is some certainty. You know some things, you're uncertain about other things. And so what are the strategies we can use to be more confident and purposeful in the midst of the uncertain? You know, claiming what you are certain about with great specificity and clarity, and what you know and what you love and what you're all about, and knowing your values and mission, things we talked about. And then seeing the unknown, embracing that challenge of saying, hey, however this plays out, again, I'm part of the story. I don't have to know the ending in advance. It's like watching a great movie or reading a great novel. You know, imagine if you couldn't enjoy a movie unless you knew how it was going to end. No, you're in the story. You are the chief character. You're enjoying this journey, and you're shaping what's coming, but you're also watching what's coming. And then you create more certainty by the way you test yourself, instead of having life's challenges just constantly test you. So this is the board. And then the other thing I was thinking about that I was going to share with you guys was this notion of
how do you test yourself, Dan? What do you mean by test yourself?
What I mean by test yourself is prescribing a self-imposed course of learning in the midst of what's coming. So when things happen that surprise you, you're saying, how am I going to be better as a result of this? Like this whole studio. We had no idea how long this was going to last and how long we'd be communicating virtually with audiences or distanced through cameras. And I thought, you know what? Regardless of how this turns out, I want to see how good I can get, and I'm going to have this new capability as a result. And because of that, now that we are getting back on the road and booking events, we also have this virtual business where we're doing live virtual events, pre-recorded videos, producing courses, you know, creating things all the time. We've got a podcast going in here now. It's wild how that leap of faith has really helped us. So, you know, I would say in any parenting moment or in any personal moment or professional challenge, you say, all right, there's this thing that I'm doing that is being asked of me. In addition to that, what is the part I'm self-prescribing? In the midst of all of this, I'm going to get better. So I think about it like trajectory. You asked about perfection. I don't believe in perfection at all. I believe in momentum and trajectory. So momentum is, I don't want to feel ever like I'm stuck, like things have stopped moving and growing and changing and transforming. So even if it's that 5 minutes a day or whatever it is, I've got to feel some momentum. And when I start to lose it, I'm really hyper aware of it. And then I think of trajectory. How am I going to be consistently better in my skill set, in my relationships, in my, we're just on that upward climb so that over time, the results are going to be exponentially great. It's like investing in an account. So I know we're almost out of time. I was going to take you through a different learning piece, but so this is the classroom. And you can see I've got Einstein here.
Well,
all kinds of fun things.
If you want to take us, we can give you a few. I'd love to have you for a few more minutes. So for whoever wants to go,
this is what I was
hang on a second, Dan. Hang on a second, Dan. For anyone who has to go, I'm always big on honoring your time. So feel free to log off. It's 7 p.m. For those of you who want to stay and get some more nuggets of wisdom from Dan, please feel free to stay for this next few minutes, because what he's giving us is a huge gift. So thank you guys for being here, and I can't wait to see what Dan has to show us.
Okay, so just a quick thing, because I've been doing this now for 26 years or longer, hundreds of organizations, thousands of audiences and leaders and whatnot, and you keep asking yourself, right, what is it about some people where they can constantly make that jump to the next level or achieve the goals that they've gone after, and others just don't? Everything falls away. They're constantly struggling, floundering, never quite getting there. And so this is what I've been teaching, is that there's, the Venn diagrams and how those all work together. But it really breaks down to 3 areas. The first sphere or circle here is your willingness, right? Are you truly willing to do what it takes? And this is not just a want or a wish, but it's an exercise of action, an exercise of will. And it's something we constantly have to ask ourselves and confirm on a daily basis, because what you thought was required to achieve something or to attain something is always going to change and grow. So this is the area of motivation. This is the area of just saying, what are my goals and what am I clear about and what am I working toward? So, but if we really know what we want out of life and how we want to grow as a person, then we can say, all right, in order to do that, what are the abilities that I need? And the abilities for me break down to knowledge and skills. So there's a gap, right? There's a gap between what I know how to do, the skill set that I have, and the depth of my knowledge base that's preventing me from having this thing that I say I want and that I'm willing to do. And so if we're honest, and self-honesty is this huge part, we say we can figure that out. But then this third piece, which is the reason why people don't get there, is capacity. Capacity is how much can you handle, right? And I think that's what we're talking about when we say, I'm overwhelmed, things are crazy. And so capacity is a very real thing, in that we're limited, of course, by the fixed assets of our time, of our money, of our personal energy, the waking hours of a day, whatever it is. But there's so much within that realm that we do control and can grow. Because the truth is, this right here, this little triangle in the center, that's all that ever gets done in your life. This is it. That is who you are and what you become and what you have to show for your effort of living on this earth. What you were actually honestly willing to do. And then what you develop the knowledge and the skills to accomplish, and have this personal capacity to continue and to pursue. So capacity can be time management, but really more often it's about stretching your comfort level with uncertainty. I can hang in the realm, in the space of things being in chaos or in flux. My capacity to absorb data or information is expanding, and I don't have to have it all figured out to go forward. I can continue to take my momentum. And you also grow your capacity, like we showed you earlier, by connecting what matters most with the different aspects of your life, so that you're consistently bringing more of yourself to all that you do and all that you are. And that's your uniqueness as well. So I won't keep going, but I just wanted to leave you with that thought.
We have one more question, if you don't mind answering it. And it's, if you
Sure.
lose momentum and get stuck, what do you recommend to get back into action to move towards upward trajectory?
Yep. So you have to have a plan, right? And this goes to that resilience piece. What happens when things throw you? What happens? And the way to identify what will get you out of being stuck is to notice what you're doing when you're unstuck. So when things are going well, what are your routines? How are you moving in the morning? Who are you talking to? What are you reading? And so there'll be these keys, these triggers for you that you associate with a healthy, happy, vibrant, energetic state. And you really do, when you're in that state of stuckness, you have to say, I'm going to start acting as if I'm not stuck anymore, and do some of the things that I would be doing now if I wasn't stuck, and suddenly you'll find yourself not so stuck anymore. It's every week I have this commitment to author and produce a new video for my weekly training. And I'm going to be shooting one tomorrow morning. On what subject? I have no idea, right? But I've put myself in that flow, and I know that tomorrow I have to go through the motions, and tonight I'll be writing it. You look at the blank page, and you go through a process that worked for you in the past, and before you know it, you're not so stuck. You've got something that leads to something else. And then you start to feel a little bit better about yourself. And before you know it, you maybe haven't transformed the whole equation, but you certainly feel differently than you did a moment ago.
Wow. I love that. That is a perfect way to end this call. Dan, thank you. Thank you so much for everything that you shared with us, for giving so much of yourself, for sharing your wife with us, for sharing your beautiful studio.
Take my wife, please.
And hopefully she'll be whistling before you know it. Thank you so much. Everybody, I'm sure you can agree this was a wonderful call. Everybody's on the chat saying thank you, excellent, love this. Thank you for your time. You're both awesome. Everybody's so pleased. So thank you, everybody. Have a wonderful day. What were you going to say, Dan?
I was going to say thank you for asking me. I enjoyed it, and I'll see you on our next planning call.
Yes, that's right. We get to chair the youth program, so I get the privilege of seeing him next week.
All right, girl.
Thank you.
Bye,
Bye.
everyone.